When you think of Far Cry, what comes to mind? The graphics? Gameplay? Or perhaps those annoying radio towers? For most people, when they think about Far Cry, they remember the villains.
Did I ever tell you the definition of insanity?
I hate when things get out of control. One fucking job, but you couldn't fucking do that!
Hey, you killed my son's last bird. Run.
What?
Run.
The very first Far Cry game I ever played was Far Cry 4. From the beginning, I enjoyed the villain of the game, Pagan Min, voiced by the one and only Troy Baker.
Left the bag on his head? Well, can he breathe? Did you at least punch holes so he doesn't suffocate? Hello. Did we enjoy our time with the CIA? Welcome to Dagesh. I apologize for the Spartan accommodations, but you have been a naughty little shit, haven't you? Gallivanting about with a golden path.
Everything from the pink suit to the smooth way of speaking was extremely captivating, and I could see just how much effort Ubisoft put into this character. The protagonist of the game is named Ajay Ghale. As I played through Far Cry 4, I quickly realized that I didn't know that much about Ajay, other than the fact that his whole reason for being in Kyrat was to return his mother's ashes to what I thought was some sort of temple. I won't go into too much more detail about the game itself. Basically, Ajay finds himself fighting for these rebel people called the Golden Path to liberate Kyrat from Pagan. The game itself was fun. I enjoyed the combat a lot and the graphics were incredible, but the one thing that bothered me the most was Ajay, the main character. He was just so lifeless and cold with barely any dialogue. I'm not kidding when I say that I felt like I was playing as a complete genocidal maniac who had no moral compass. Ajay's personality was not explored at all, and I wondered why Ubisoft seemed to not bother with developing him as a character. After I completed Far Cry 4, I immediately bought Far Cry 3 because I heard for the longest time that it was the best game in the series. In typical Far Cry fashion, the main villain of the game, Voss, was yet again very well written, appearing just barely on the line between normality and insanity.
They say Voss! Voss! Who the fuck is it going to be? Them or me? Me or them?
On the other hand, the protagonist of the game, Jason Brody, starts off as a weak and timid frat boy from California. Alongside Jason is his brother Grant, who is an ex-Marine. Ubisoft did a good job of making the player feel like Grant will be the star of the game, even if he is only a secondary character. And then this happens.
Where are we? I never should have made that jump alone. I promised Dad I'd take care of you two. Does it say where Riley is? We're gonna find him. We're gonna free the others, and then we're going home.
Jason immediately loses his sense of comfort in Grant and has to survive on his own. The main difference between Far Cry 3 and Far Cry 4 is that unlike Ajay, Jason actually changes over time. Jason goes from being disgusted with himself after killing a man for the first time
You're dead! I found him! Shit, oh God.
to relishing violence as he continues saving his friends.
You know, I never thought I'd be able to kill someone. The first time it felt wrong. Which is good, right? But now, it feels like winning.
The reason why Far Cry 3 is considered by most people as the best in the series is because both the villain and the protagonist each have their unique personalities and beliefs that change throughout the game. This is just my opinion, but in the later installments of the Far Cry franchise, the protagonists aren't nearly as interesting as Jason Brody, which leads to the overall plot of the game suffering. I believe that Far Cry 4 would have been a much better and more well-received game if Ajay grew as a person instead of just remaining as a shell of a man for the entire game. Far Cry 4 checked off every box when it came to graphics, gameplay, and the villain, but the reason why it failed to be better than Far Cry 3 is because Jason is a superior protagonist simply because he was affected by the choices he made. I understand that Ajay has paramilitary experience, so maybe the violence doesn't affect him as much as it did with Jason, but it was still boring to see him remain completely unfazed by the war he involved himself in. I'm not sure if Ubisoft felt like they could not top Jason, so they decided to focus less on making Ajay interesting and more on Pagan as a villain. This way of thinking is cemented in Far Cry 5. Oh my, where to even begin with this game? So Far Cry 5 is my least favorite Far Cry game for a lot of different reasons, which I won't be going into this video. The game is set in a zoned off section of Montana named Hope County, where a cult leader named Joseph Seed has taken over with the help of his family. The entire concept of the game makes no sense because I'm pretty sure the FBI would have noticed if one guy started buying up every piece of land in a 500-mile radius, but I digress. It's funny because the game begins with US Marshals serving a warrant from the FBI, so I guess they did do something only after an entire militia took control of a county. As usual, the main villain is established off the rip, which is perfectly fine, but here's where things take a turn for the absolute worst. During the opening cutscene, the protagonist is called Rook. Rook, short for rookie.
Rookie!
I remember thinking that was a little odd, because even rookies are addressed by their real names, but I thought maybe it was just an inside joke between the marshals and that the protagonist's identity would be revealed later on. Nope. I'm not even kidding when I say that the protagonist is a literal NPC. No name, no personality, no freaking dialogue. How did Ubisoft go from creating one of gaming's best protagonists in Far Cry 3 to a faceless, nameless bot character in 5? Imagine being in charge of leading the development of a new installment of a multi-million-dollar game, only to decide that there shouldn't be a protagonist at all. I'm not saying that this was the only issue with Far Cry 5, but when you play a single-player game without an actual protagonist, it is difficult to get invested in the story. Sure, Joseph Seed was a cool villain, but villains are only as strong as their counterparts, aka protagonists. Remember, there is no Joker without Batman. Which leads me to the 6th and final Far Cry game. In my opinion, Far Cry 6 is one of Ubisoft's most hyped up Far Cry games. The voice actor that they cast to play the main villain is the one and only Giancarlo Esposito. For those of you that don't know, Giancarlo is most famous for playing Gus Fring on the hit TV show Breaking Bad, who is also a villain. Ubisoft went all out with promotions for the game, including live-action cutscenes with Giancarlo Esposito. To me, the whole thing came across as desperate, almost like Ubisoft was betting it all on this game bringing life back into the Far Cry franchise. The plot of the game revolves around Giancarlo's character, Anton Castillo, who is the president of a country called Yara. In the opening cutscene, it is revealed that he has literally found the cure for cancer called Viviro. The only catch is that he uses the citizens of Yara as slaves to produce the cure. I thought that this was an interesting concept that was similar yet different from the other Far Cry games. The main character of the game can be chosen as either a man or a woman by the player, but the canon version is female. Dani Rojas is a citizen of Yara who wants to escape to America, but somewhere along the way she joins up with, surprise surprise, another rebellion. Very original stuff. But what do you expect? It's Ubisoft. Dani is another unremarkable protagonist in the Far Cry franchise. She wants to free Yara but has no idea how to run a country. Anton Castillo even calls her out on this.
When I am dead and Yara is burning, what exactly is your plan? Hold hands, sing songs around the fire?
Venga! Who told you, fascista?
You call me Señor Presidente!
The game desperately tries to get you to care about Dani and the gang of misfits she fights alongside, but in reality it's impossible to care because we know virtually nothing about her. On the contrary, we learn everything about Anton Castillo, from how he and his father were imprisoned as a boy to his cancer diagnosis. Yet again, Ubisoft failed to deliver a well-rounded protagonist, and what's funny is that the protagonist does not even have to be likable. I'm not saying that we should despise them, but their actions need to have some background behind them. Jason was a typical frat boy from California, who had to become a killer to save his friends. That makes a lot of sense because anyone can see themselves becoming a monster to save those they love. Ubisoft as a company has gone downhill for the past 5 years or so, focusing more on the cash than good writing. They have become creatively bankrupt and it shows in their storytelling. I hope that one day the Far Cry series can go back to its former glory, but only time will tell. Thank you all so much for watching, have a nice day, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace out everybody.